Hi everyone, it's me again, Kirsty. I'm so happy that I finally got through most of my backlog and I'm sort of on time with this video because it's still March. And yeah, I feel like I've gotten the hang of things. Slowly but surely, I feel like filming and editing is a little easier and doesn't take that much time. Voiceovers are still a bit of a struggle. I guess it might be easier if I wrote down a loose script for these. I did go ahead and try it for this video, so I'll see how that goes. But as I said, doing voiceovers is still a bit of a learning curve for me because talking to myself feels quite odd. But I'm improving. I think I'm improving. In this video, you will see me set up my journal for March, and the theme that I picked for this month is birds. So I got a little birdhouse for my birthday last year from my mum, and it's sitting out there on my balcony, and there's a bunch of birds every day that eat stuff there, and it's the most adorable thing ever, and I loved it so much to watch the birds this winter and to feed them and to watch them as they flew by and picked up their little grains, and you know, it was so adorable and I loved watching them up close, and so I really felt inspired to do a bird theme at some point, and March felt like the ideal time to do that. I almost only included birds that are coming to my birdhouse, so birds that I actually see and that I've seen all winter long, and yeah, I didn't pick a universal colour for this month, and I just picked a specific colour for every spread and for the bird that I drew on each page. So for my cover page, as you can see, I drew a little robin. And by the way, when I edited this video, I realized that I only knew the names of these different kinds of birds in German. So it was quite fun to learn some new vocabulary by finding out what those birds are called in English. So if I'm not mistaken, this one is a robin. And I did a very dreamy hand lettering font with heavier downstrokes, but they are hollow, and then I filled them in with the same color that I filled in the bird with. So for this robin, it's a very pretty orange, and I'm not usually an orange person. I don't really enjoy orange all that much, but when it comes to nature and that cute little birdie, orange. Does that make any sense? Oh gosh. So for my calendar spread this month, I made my typical big calendar again. And by the way, if you're wondering, each of those boxes measures 2.5 centimeters by 3 centimeters, which is 5 by 6 dot spaces. And on the right, you're going to see me draw a little blue nuthatch. I used a couple of Pinterest pictures as references. I hope I'll remember to link all of those in the description box. I still need to do that for my February setup and the illustrations that I did. There were a couple of drawings that were based on art that I found online, and I think I should have mentioned that. But yeah, as I said, I'll try and go back and edit and add all of the ones that I used from somewhere else. And yeah, as I said, I added this little blue nuthatch, and I coloured it in the same way I did with the robin. I used my watercolours, and I deliberately didn't stay within the lines and just added blobs of colour on top of my line art. And yeah, most of the blobs and splatters are just around the bird, so it just gives this aquarelle sort of look. It looks much softer, and I hope I've done a good job in making it look like it has been made deliberately, so it's not like I accidentally dropped color all over my page, but that it has been made on purpose. If it's all inside the lines, it's just very neat and tidy, but I wanted it to be a little dreamy and birdie. I don't know. I think that everything about birds and about flying in general and wings just makes you think of freedom. And so I wanted to feel some sort of freedom when drawing those birds, and so not staying inside of the line art that I did and just blobbing colour all over the place just felt like the right thing to do. I drew all of the boxes for 5 entire weeks again, so also for the days that aren't part of March, and to differentiate between the days that do belong to March and those that do not, I coloured in the upper bar of those boxes for those days that do belong to March, and I left out the ones that belong to the other months. And on top of that, as you can see, I played around with some washi tape and added that as another visual differentiation between the two. And yeah, I also used the Dreamy font again on the left side, and it's top to bottom. And yeah, also did this blue effect to the hollow part of the letters so that it fits in together with the whole spread and it's all the same color. I'm actually pretty proud that I managed to do at least some shots from a closer angle this time. I did not do that for this spread, but for all of the others, it's a little easier to see what I'm actually doing. And since I only use my phone for filming, there was a lot of switching back and forth and mounting my phone back on the tripod and then removing it to hold it with my hand while drawing so that I could get close-ups. And yeah, maybe I'll get a proper camera for filming in the future to make things a little easier, but I'm still pretty proud that I managed to go back and forth and show you, hey, this is what I'm actually doing, this is what it looks like when you can see what I see as I'm drawing it, because from the angle from the top it's a little hard to see because everything's a little tinier and I tend to draw very tiny. For my tracker spread this month, I went back to the calendar layout for my habit tracker. I just feel like I get the most out of this one if it's easier to see how I did on a weekly basis, because I have the different weeks for each calendar thingy, because each day is just a box as it would be in my calendar layout. And yeah, especially for the habits that I'm supposed to do on a specific day a week, it's much easier to see it if I have little calendar versions for each habit instead of just a column where everything is just more wishy-washy. I don't know, if I'm supposed to do one specific habit on every Wednesday, there is a clear line of little dots underneath each other where I can see I did that every Wednesday this month. And I think that's pretty cool, so it just makes the most sense to me. My sleep and mood tracker have stayed the same way for years, and I only adapted some minor aspects. For instance, I added the dotted line for the ideal times for when I would like to go to bed and when I want to get up. And that would be midnight till 8 in the morning, as you can see there. But I've also had this dotted line for these dotted lines for a couple of months, years. I don't even know. I think it's been there for forever. If you'd like to see what this looks like when it's filled out, do let me know in the comments. I'd love to do a flip through of my previous journals at some point, but since I use them as a diary, I think I mentioned that before, it will be quite the task to blur out all the writing and those things that I do not necessarily want to share. So it's gonna be fun. By the way, the bird on the tracker, I completely forgot to mention that little buddy, is a light grey tufted titmouse, as far as I know. I think it's a North American bird. I've not seen this one in real life myself, but I found such a cute reference photo when I did some research on birds. I just scrolled through Pinterest to have a look at different pictures of little winged creatures, and I stumbled upon this one and it just looked so adorable that I had to draw it. So even though it's not one that I've actually seen in my little birdhouse outside on my balcony, it was one that just looked too cute not to include in my birds setup this month. My notes page this month, and I think by now you know the drill already, is almost entirely empty. So I only added the title, which says notes, in my dreamy lettering fonty thingy, and I added a border again because I think that ties everything together visually really nicely. And then I just went ahead and had fun with some drawings. I drew 2 different birds on this page, each in one specific corner for this setup of this spread, I should say. And the one that you already saw me draw on the top right corner was a little more boring in terms of the colors, because it's actually a white bird with only slight brownish tones, and it's a long-tailed tit. And this one that you see me draw right now is a jay. If I've picked out any wrong names for those birds, do let me know in the comments. As I said, I've never used different sorts of birds and their names in English ever before, except for, I don't know, an eagle maybe. If I use the wrong terms, do let me know. I'm always eager to learn new words in English. I love the language. I think I mentioned this earlier, that I studied English and it's still so dear to me. And finding out all of the different names for these birds was a challenge that I was not expecting at first, because obviously I know most of the English words. But yeah, that was fun. So for those two birds, I love seeing those in real life. They have the most beautiful shimmery blue or white feathers. The long-tailed tit just looks so cute when it flies with its long tail. And I had so much fun drawing these birds this month. It's been so much fun to get into the detail of them and to see what they look like and how they each have the same constituent parts, but they all look different. For one of my weekly pages, I recently drew a typical blue tit, which looked so cute, but you're not going to see this in this video. As I said, if I do a flip through at some point, then you're going to get to have a look at it. For this last spread, I did a very basic bird. I don't know, it's not a basic bird, but it's the one that just comes around all winter long, pretty much all the time, which is a coal tit that you're going to see me draw in a second. And yes, it is rather awkward to be speaking about tits all the time when I'm not actually referring to a woman's bust. Anyhow, I did the same layout for my weekly this month as I did for my weeklies last month. And you already saw me set up this one in my last video. And it's just a one-page weekly where the next 3 pages are going to be dedicated to writing diary. And on this side of the spread, I drew my little coal tit, which is the most ordinary bird, I would say. Well, it's not ordinary, but it's the most common one, I guess, around here. So it's the one that I just see most frequently. It doesn't look as special, maybe, as some other birds do, but I do really like it. And so because it's the one I do see most frequently, I had to include it in the setup somewhere at some point. So yes, that is the bird that I drew on this page, on this last spread for this video. I decided to let this one sit on a berry branch. I had the idea to have the berries and their colour bleed out, just because the light yellow of the bird was a little, not boring, but it didn't have quite the same effect as, for example, the orange did with the robin. So for this one, it was the berries that look fancy. For the rest of this setup, I only added little circles that signify each day of the week, where I can add all of the tasks that need to get done next to them. And that is all there is to my weekly setup. If there is anything specific about my bullet journal that you would like to know in more detail, please let me know in the comments. I would love to have any sort of suggestions, because voiceovers, as I said, are a little tricky for me still, and I'd be happy about suggestions. And that is it for my March setup. I hope that you liked watching me draw some birds and mess around with my watercolors. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye bye!